Hello, everybody. Oh, microphone. Hello, everybody. Fiona Lukey's here with your Friday live Q&A. It's Friday, the 3rd of June, and I'm coming to you live like I always do at approximately this time. It's been a really, really busy morning this morning, I've got to say. I've been in back-to-back sessions since 7:30 this morning. I've been in back-to-back, literally one boom, 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 boom. So I'm sorry I'm running a few minutes late. I really struggled to get things when you're speaking to people and sticking to a schedule sometimes. But anyway, I'm here live for you this Friday, the 3rd of June. It is getting wintry and more wintry in Melbourne, I have to say. So I'm rugging up here, but I know for some of you on the other side of the world, it's summer. And I hope that you're having the sun is shining wherever you are in the world. And if you've just tuned in, I would love you to say hi. Just love to know, as always, who is out there and who is listening. And if you have a question for me, you're more than welcome to pop the question in the chat box there, and I will do my absolute best to answer that question for you. It's been a really interesting week at my end. Lots of interesting things coming up in my private work and with my relatable students. So lots of things that I want to share, but I also want to make sure. Hi, Rose. Hello there. Thanks for saying hi. I hope the sun is shining where you are. It is very wintry and cold here today. And I am struggling with that a little bit, but that's okay. This is what's meant to happen. It is meant to be wintry and cold. Now, if you've got any questions at all for me, pop them down below in the chat and I'll answer them for you. Hey, Barbara. Hi, I haven't seen you for a little while. Thanks for popping on and saying hi. Hi, Maz. Hey, darling. Thank you for saying hi, as always. I do love it when people say hi to me, just to make it about me for a little bit right now. Thank you for saying hi. I always like to know if anybody's actually out there listening. I know a lot of people listen to the replays because they send me messages and ask me questions. But so today's really all about oh, hi, David. Hello, welcome. You're in Burlington. Do you know I've been to Burlington? Can you believe that? I have been to Burlington. Isn't that crazy? I have been to Burlington. Long time ago, but I have. So thanks for stopping in and saying hi. Welcome. Now, anyone got any questions, feel free to say them, to pop them in the chat below. As I was just saying, it's been a really interesting week. Lots of different things have been coming up for me in my client work and in with my students in Relatable. But something that I've had a question asked of me, and there's a couple actually that I want to bring to the table, but one that gets asked often, so I'm going to answer that for you in a moment. Hi, Carly. Only an hour and a half from you. Really? You guys are only an hour and a half from each other? Wow. Okay, there you go. Carly, meet David. David, meet Carly. Hi, Pauline from Tauranga, New Zealand. I hope I spelt that correct. I said that correctly. Thanks for saying hi. Really appreciate you stopping by and letting me know where you are and where you are in the world saying hi from. So anyone else out there that wants to say hi, I'd love to know where you are and if you're finding what I'm about to share with you helpful. And again, if you've just tuned in and you have a question for me, just pop it in the chat below. All right. So there's a question that I often get asked and that I want to answer because I know a lot of you have this question on your mind, and it's a question that comes up often. Tony from UK Newcastle. Okay, hi Tony. Tony, it must be very early in the morning for you if you're in the UK, like super early. Like, what is it? 12? We're 9 hours. So wow. That is super, super early in the morning. So I'm impressed that you're up listening to this. Hi, Katrina from Geelong. Thanks for saying hi. Hello. Graham, always a pleasure to hear from you, Graham. Hello. Mount Shasta, Northern California. Don't you just love that? This is just the most wonderful thing about the internet, about being able to do this, is that we're all in completely different time zones, but we can all connect together at this exact same moment in time. It makes you realize how much of a construct time actually is. Okay. Time is definitely not linear, is it? Can't be. If time was actually linear, we would not be able to meet up at this exact moment in time. I would always be 16, 17, 18 plus hours ahead of those of you in the US and Canada, and 9 hours ahead of you in the UK. And yet here we are, we're all able to meet up at this exact moment in time. It just shows you that time is a construct. This is an important thing to understand, because people can really make their life difficult based on their relationship with time. But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But it's so interesting, isn't it, when you start to see things differently. So the question that people that I often get asked, and I haven't answered this one before, I have answered it on previous lives. The question that I often get answered is, for those of you who are in a relationship that is struggling, okay, the question I often get answered is, how do I know when it's time to leave? All right. How do I know when it's time to leave that relationship? And, it's an interesting question, because, 1 minute it can seem really, really clear, and the next minute it can look like mud. And I know people can go in and out of having clarity and not having clarity around that. Okay. I know that. And I wanted to speak to that today, because I know we can get very distracted going round and round and round in our minds trying to work out the answer to that. And I'm going to give you an answer that's probably a little bit different to what you may have heard before, because those of you who are familiar with my work, or maybe just learning a bit about my work, I do point you in a very different direction, okay, to where most kind of conversations about relationships, most conversations about human behavior actually point to. All right. So if you've just joined me, feel free to say hi. Always like to know where you are. And if you have a question, post it in the chat box. Sorry if I'm repeating that, but I've got people coming and going all the time, and I want to make sure that they know that they can post a question in the chat box below. So the question I'm answering now is, how do I know when it's time to leave a relationship? All right. How do I know when it's time? Now, in order to be able to answer that question, you have to know within yourself, okay, when you have clarity of mind and when you do not, okay? Because you want to be able to answer that question from a place of clarity of mind. Now, most people are going to point you in the direction of someone else's behavior, of circumstances, of things that have happened. They're going to point you in that direction. All right. Now, if you're making decisions based on someone else's behavior and circumstances, you actually don't know when you have clarity of mind and when you do not. And you want to be able to make the decision based on where you are and what makes sense to you, and how you're seeing the world and how connected you are to your own wisdom. And wisdom is something that when we have clarity of mind, we are most connected to. So this is very much a conversation about you understanding where your thinking is at, and when your mind is clear and when your mind is not. Because when you do that, you can have a very clear mind, for example, that it's time to go even if everything's looking fine out here. All right. See, the problem with trying to make a decision based upon what is happening out here is you will be deciding it on someone else's behavior rather than what is true for you. So, for example, you might have experienced this, or you may know someone who's in this cycle. They have a fight, things aren't going well, and they say to themselves, and this was absolutely the cycle I was in, by the way, many years ago. They have a fight, things aren't going well, and then all of a sudden, when things aren't going well, they'll be thinking, no, we need to leave. We're just not compatible. We need to separate. And if you're married, but we need to get a divorce. This is just not working. It's not working. It's not working. Then they get past the fight, things calm down, and then all of a sudden they feel differently. And so it feels like they're on this roller coaster. It feels like they're on this, they're like a puppet on a string. All right. They're on this emotional roller coaster. 1 minute, I've got to leave. I've got to leave. Next minute, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. Next minute, things get difficult. I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. No, I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. And so they're in this state of indecision and confusion a lot. And so they don't have clarity of mind. And that's because they're basing it on everything that's happening out here. You've got to be able to look in a different direction to really be able to answer that question for yourself, okay? Because you can be really clear that it's time to go, or you don't want to be in the relationship, and you could have just had a really great weekend away together, okay? Things could actually be fine, but you just have this knowing, and you want to be able to tune into and listen to your knowing, okay? So what am I saying? What I'm saying is you make a decision or you listen to the thinking that looks real and true and makes sense to you when you're actually in a good feeling with that person. All right? That's how you make a decision around that. Believe it or not. You don't make the decision when you're in a terrible bad feeling. You make the decision when you're in a good feeling, because when you're in a good feeling, you have the clearest thinking available to you and you're most likely to have clarity of mind. And in that moment, okay, you actually know that you're making a decision based on the best thinking available. And in that moment, or if you keep coming back to being in a good feeling and it still makes sense for you to end or leave this relationship, then maybe that's something you want to look at. If it only makes sense to you when you're upset, then I would argue that that's something that perhaps you can't really trust in. So it's about knowing where to look for the answer, and it's about knowing when your mind is clear and when your mind is not. Now, a lot of people do not know when they have clarity of mind and when they do and when they don't have clarity of mind. In fact, for some people, it's something that has never even occurred to them or they've never even thought about. And, this is something that I see a lot, and it's come up. I've seen this actually a lot with a lot of new clients and prospective clients I've been speaking to this week. I say to them, actually, what we need to look at is not this behavior here, but how clear your mind is. And they're saying to me, oh my goodness, I've never thought about whether my mind is clear. That makes so much sense. I'm always thinking about everything. My mind is always going at a million miles an hour. You're right. I've never taken on board whether I've got a clear mind or not. I'm just always looking out here at all the things I have to do or I haven't done or what someone else is or isn't doing. And I feel like I'm all over the place. I'm like, yes, that's exhausting. You have no bandwidth, and you can end up going down rabbit holes of thinking and behavior that you don't feel proud of. Okay, but it's not because there's something wrong with you. It's actually because you don't have a clear mind, and you haven't been taught how to navigate that. So when it comes to making any kind of a decision, so we've been talking about whether it's whether how do I know when it's time to leave a relationship or stay? Okay, this is the question I get asked all the time that I wanted to speak to today. It's very important, first of all, for you to know when your mind is clear and when it is not, so that you know when you have the best thinking available to you and when you do not. Because thought is tricky. I call it the greatest con artist on earth. And not every thought that we have is worthy of our time or attention. And not every thought that we have is factual. In fact, most of it is not. So you have to know how to navigate that. And this is absolutely what I teach. And it is the first thing that I teach anybody, whether they're a new student in my program Relatable, whether they are a new client with me. I was actually just speaking to a gentleman before I came on this call, who's been labeled with all sorts of things. And I said to him, I don't believe that you actually have any of those things. What I do know is that you have an overthinking addiction, and you don't know you don't know the difference between when your mind is clear and when it is not. And he said, oh my goodness, I've never thought of that. I have done so many programs about so many things, but that I would love to know that. I would love to learn that. And I went, you'll find it a breath of fresh air. You'll feel lighter, freer, calmer, because you'll start putting down a massive mental load. You'll start to feel grounded. You'll start to know intrinsically when your mind is clear and when you are operating from the best space available to you. And that is absolutely something that we all need to have a point of reference around, because when it comes to making a decision, a big decision like, do I leave this relationship? Do I stay? You need to know the space you're making a decision from first. And this is something people generally have never thought about because they're too busy looking at the other person's behavior or the circumstances as a point of reference. This should be the thing you look at secondarily, not primarily. Does that make sense? You want to know the space you are in first and then look out. Most people are looking out and never look in and have any point of reference around that. Let me know if that is making sense, because this is a very important distinction that I'm making. Hey, Roz, thanks for saying hi. Nice to see you, honey. David's saying he lives in Oswego. I hope I'm saying that with my very strong Australian accent. I'm sorry. Oswego, New York, across the lake. Okay, so you are just a hop, skip, and a jump from each other, Carly and David, but just in different countries, because Carly's in Canada. Wow, I love this. Hey, Deezer. Thanks for saying hi. Hi. I know Deezer's in Colorado. You're in Colorado, aren't you, Deezer? Um, so let me know if what I've just said makes sense. And if you've just joined in, I've just been answering a question that I get sent in a lot and was sent in by 3 different people to me this week. How do I know when it's time to leave a relationship or stay? How do I know? And so I was just pointing you in a different direction around that, because I think it's really, really important to have that distinction of knowing the space that you're looking from. So let me know if that makes sense. And I'm going to go to my next question that I've been sent in. Okay, I'm going to read this one out. Thank you very much for the amazing. Hi, Fiona. Thank you very much for the amazing and important work that you're doing. I have found so many insights and new perspectives regarding my own behavioral patterns in relationships. Okay, my pleasure. Thank you so much for saying that. I would like to ask you a question. Why do some people find it hard to forgive you? They either can't or they don't want to. Even if you have really apologized from your heart multiple times, instead of forgiving, they totally withdraw and cut contact. For me, it is very difficult to just cut someone out of my heart and life like this. So this really hurts and puzzles me. Thank you from my heart. Oh, okay. So the question is, why for some people can't they or don't, or why don't they want to forgive another person, even if you have been someone who's really apologized from your heart multiple times? Instead of forgiving, they totally withdraw and cut contact. I think there's actually a couple of things in this that I want to speak to. So let me do that. All right. Hi, Jason. Hello. Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate that. So this is a question around forgiveness. Again, great question. Thank you for answering it, because I get asked a lot of questions around forgiveness. So many that I created a special little mini program around it as a bonus for my relatable students, because it's a big one. There's a lot of misunderstandings about forgiveness, what it means, what it looks like, and what the fallout from actually forgiveness is all about. All right. So the first thing that I want to say in regards to this question is, I think for a lot of people, forgiveness is about letting go. Okay. And for some people, letting go is really, really, really hard, because a lot of people live their lives from a place of fear instead of love. Okay. They look at their lives from a place of fear instead of love. All right. So when you're holding on tight, okay, you're in self-protection mode, and you're coming from fear because you're, and this is why I talk about the 3 elements of relationships: the relationship you have with you, the relationship you have with life, and the relationship you have with others. And it's these three key areas that are an important factor in understanding and being good at them. All right. So it's not just your relationship with others where most people focus. It's actually on those 3 things. You got to have an understanding of those 3 things. Now, the great thing about the understanding I teach is it deals with those 3 things. Okay. You have a different relationship with you, your relationship with life changes, and therefore so does your relationship with others. Okay. So people who struggle to forgive are often frightened. They're in a place of fear. They are operating from fear, and they've not been taught or understand the difference between when you operate from a place of love versus when you operate from a place of fear. So for a lot of people that come my way, they think they're operating from a place of love when they're operating from a place of fear. Okay. And they don't know that distinction. And that is a distinction that is not something you learn by information. It's learned through experience and a feeling and a knowing, and knowing where to look for it. Okay. So for those people who are struggling to forgive, I think for a lot of people who struggle, it's like, I've got to let go of something. And if I let go of something, that leaves me open and vulnerable to being hurt. So holding on is a self-protection mechanism. Now, what a lot of people don't realize when they're holding on is the massively high price they're paying. Because when we hold on to something, we often feel separate and alone and frightened and angry and frustrated. And we're living in the feeling of that. Okay. And that takes its toll on the quality of our lives. It takes a toll on the quality of our connections, and it takes its toll on our well-being and obviously on our relationships. All right. So, you often see this, and I find this a really interesting thing with people who are getting older. Okay, so you'll find, and this is, I'm being very generalized when I say this. Okay, so please understand this is a very generalized thing that I'm saying. I know it doesn't apply to everybody all of the time. I'm aware of that. So for those of you who are going to but what I'm saying, just put that to one side, because I know I'm generalizing. Okay, but for a lot of people getting older, their world gets smaller, doesn't it? Okay, as we get older, our world gets smaller. In other words, we become more attached to having dinner at a certain time, watching a certain show, going out at a certain time of the week, socializing with the same people, holidaying in the same place. We get a lot. We have a lot of we have a lot of significance around certainty and things, and routine, and things staying the way a certain way, and our world shrinks. Now we see that as a normal, natural part of aging, and it is not. Okay, it's not. It's not a normal, natural part of aging. It's just something we've come to accept as a normal, natural part of aging. Okay, so your world can actually keep expanding. But when we're used to choosing fear, when we don't have so much trust in life, when we don't have so much trust in ourselves, we get used to choosing fear a lot. And so we shut down more, our world shrinks. It's really interesting when you see it. Okay? It's really interesting when you see it. And so this is how people's lives become more separate. And the one thing that we all need and want as humans is connection. That's what we thrive on. It's what we thrive on. So when we feel separate, we don't feel so good. Our thinking tanks. We become more frightened. We become more certainty driven. We struggle to get over things. We struggle to forgive. We struggle to let go. And so you'll find as people get older, they hold on more and more and more and more and more and more tightly. It's really interesting when you see it. And that's actually being driven by fear, because when you come from love, you find it easier to let go. And, you got to understand, the more you let go, the more expansive your life is, the more expansive the feeling you get to live in, the more bandwidth you have, the more choice. There's a richness to your life. Okay? There's a richness to your life. So for some people, forgiveness is a sense of safety and protection. Sorry, not forgiving, I beg your pardon. Right? The reason why they don't, or they find it hard, is because they're so used to living in self-protection mode, and it's a sense of safety and protection. And they don't know how to have an experience that's not based on that, where that is their reference point and their base level. Okay. So that's one thing that I want to speak to around your question around why some people don't and can't forgive. Now, the second thing that I want to speak to around that is, I'm guessing because you've asked this question of me, that there is someone in your life that is not forgiving of something that you've done. All right. And you've said this, it really hurts and puzzles me. So what you want to see in that is there's something in there for you to learn. That if you're, and if you're someone out there who has where forgiveness hasn't been granted, and you've apologized wholeheartedly, and you've, as I call it, you've made a mess and you've cleaned it up, and the other person just isn't interested in meeting you there, okay, then the lesson for you as well is also in letting go. Can you see how there's a mirror happening here? That if you're opening your heart and you're wanting someone to forgive, and they're not forgiving and they can't let go, and you're getting really hurt by that, then you need to let go. See the mirror? Everything is a mirror. Everything in your life is a mirror, okay, of how you're showing up, of where your level of awareness is. It's a mirror, because you got to let go of the outcome around that. See that? You've got to let go of their response to you. You have to be okay with where they are. It's about you having clarity of mind and saying, I've done everything I can, and what happens after that is up to them. So that you are clear within yourself that you've done anything that you can do, right? So that you can then live your life from that place of clarity. I've done everything I can. The rest is up to them. And if they want to meet me where I've shown up to them, great. And if they don't, that's okay too. So the lesson for both people here is to learn to let go. Can you see that? Anyway, I hope that helps answer your question around forgiveness and why people struggle to forgive. So I'm just going to check in. For those of you who've just joined in, I have just answered two questions. Number one, around how do I know when it's time to leave a relationship? And number two, why is it that people struggle to forgive? whether they can't or don't want to, even if I've poured my heart out and forgiven from the depths of my heart, or apologize from the depths of my heart. How come people find that hard? So these are the questions I've just answered. So I'd love to get some feedback from anyone that's listening. And if you've just joined in, please feel free to say hi and let me know where you are. Carly, you can have a look at that bonus module. Yeah, it's a good one. I really enjoyed creating that, and I think it's really, really important because forgiveness is about setting yourself free, right? Now, anybody else got a question or want to give me some feedback around what I've said or want to say hi? I'm just going to give you guys a chance to say something now because I've been talking a lot. I know. I'm going to have a glass, just have a sip of water whilst I see if anyone wants to say hello to me. That's right, setting yourself free. And when you know how to let go, you can set yourself free all the time. It's the most amazing feeling. As we were just talking about, I don't know if those of you are listening, I just released my latest episode of Relatable, my podcast, and I was interviewing the beautiful Carly, and we were talking about emotional freedom and finding hope in your relationship, and it was a wonderful interview. So I highly recommend you listen to that. There is a post linking you to that podcast interview on my Facebook page somewhere. So if you scroll down, you'll see it. Hi, Rebecca. Hi. Thanks for saying hi. Appreciate it. Where are you tuning in the world from? And if anybody else has some feedback around what I've just shared, if that's been helpful, do you have a question? Does that make sense to you? Let me know. Yes, I'm learning to let go of so many things I held so tightly to. Yeah, awesome. It is the most amazing feeling, Barbara. The most amazing feeling. Newcastle. Okay, perfect. I hope the rain has slowed down there for you guys. I really do. I hope the rain has slowed down. One of the reasons that we struggle in our relationships is because we struggle to let go. Okay. And letting go can be the most freeing, amazing feeling. All right. And when you start to understand the difference, you just want more of it. Believe me, it's got a richness. It's delicious. It's this wonderful, wonderful place that we come from. And I can't explain it to you how important and powerful it is when you see that and you understand where to look in order to do that. And again, if you're wondering, if you've got a how question, I teach this in my online program Relatable and in my client work. I teach this. Honestly, that's got everything that you could ever possibly need around all of this. Okay. So I really encourage you to take a look if you're feeling stuck. The sense of freedom that you'll have very, very quickly from doing that program is really quite amazing. And I see it from my students all the time who've just started or are in the middle of it. They can't believe how much lighter and freer they feel. And believe you me, that changes the entire quality of your life everywhere. Maz, I love that you've expanded on fear versus love. I believe this to be such a development for your inner peace when we know when we were coming from. Absolutely, 100%. Yep, so true, Maz, so true. Jason, can you be too forgiving? Possibly. I guess I'd have to know what you mean by that, because on one hand I could say no, but it depends on the space that you're forgiving from. Okay, so that's a great question. Let me answer. Let me expand on that. If you are forgiving from a place of fear, then yes, you can be too forgiving. Okay, if you are forgiving from a place of love, no. So it's the space that you forgive from. If you are forgiving from a place of fear, then yes, you can, because often when you are forgiving from a place of fear, you are letting go of something because you don't want the other person to be upset, or you're scared of someone's reaction, or you want people to like you. So you overlook things. Okay? That's not what I'm talking about. That is not what I'm talking about. You can be forgiving of someone, but really clear that you don't want to hang out with them, for example. Okay? I see people who've let things go out of a place of fear, and then get caught in this toxic cycle of not honoring themselves. And these are normally people who are absolutely coming from a place of fear. So the space that you forgive from is very, very important. So I would be saying people who forgive from a place of fear do not have clarity of mind. Okay. And they don't understand when their mind is clear and when it isn't. This is so see, I got to say to you this: when you understand this stuff, it impacts everything in a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way. Okay. So great question, Jason. And it's absolutely about the space that you are forgiving from. So I would say, okay, if I could take that even further, because I'm just thinking this through as I answer that question, that if you are forgiving from a space of fear, that's not about forgiveness. True forgiveness comes from a completely different space. That is all about fear. That is more about control. Okay. Because you're trying to control someone else's reaction and how they are, because you don't want to lose something, and there's a number of reasons why that can happen. I mean, we can do that as well when we're in an abusive situation and all those sorts of things. So I don't want to diminish any of those things, okay? But there is a difference between forgiving from a place of love and forgiving from a place of fear. So the space that you come from would determine that. It's very, very important. So again, it comes back to, do you know the space that you are coming from? Do you understand where you are in any given moment of time? Do you know how to navigate your thinking? Do you know where to look? Okay. And these are all the things that I teach people first. And then we look at their lives or their relationship through that lens. And so they've got a much better chance of honoring who they are, feeling grounded, present, and confident in their decisions. Okay. Yes. But the lines get blurred sometimes between fear and love as well. Yes, but only because you're looking out here and you're not looking here. They don't get blurred when you're looking here. Let me tell you, you're very clear. Interesting. It's really interesting. But that happens when people are looking out here and they don't know where to look here. All right. Hi, everyone. For those of you who've just joined me, feel free to say hi. We have been talking about why people, how do I know when people can, it's time to leave or stay a relationship? And we're talking about forgiveness at the moment, because these are two hot topics that come my way quite a bit. So great questions that I've been asked this week. And I know a lot of you will hopefully find them helpful and relate to them. Okay, so my pleasure, Rebecca. I'm, like I said, I want to be of service in some way and give back wherever I can. So I appreciate that you're finding them helpful, and I appreciate you letting me know, because I'm sitting here chatting away and I don't quite know what's going on out there in Facebook land or on the internet and where people are at. So it's nice to get to know whether this is actually helpful, and also I know I'm speaking in a different direction. I know you're missing what you had, Graham. I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. I do. Wish I could give you a big hug. My pleasure, Jason, and my pleasure, Carly. My pleasure, my pleasure, my pleasure. Okay, we are coming up to the end of my. I'm normally like to chat for about 30 minutes, and I've got to be somewhere very quickly. So I really want to say thank you to all of you that have come on live. Thank you for saying hello to me. I know some of you get a bit shy and find that hard. So those of you who have, I appreciate it. And if you have a question, you can pop it in the chat below. If you want to know more about my online program, Relatable, which people absolutely love, I will put that here for you as well. And if you want to send me an email for next week, you can do that also. The email to send it to, if you've got a question that you want me to answer, is hello@fionalukis.com.au. And my assistant Mario will compile those in a document for me to answer and look at for you next Friday. So I'm here at around about 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which is 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday. All right. Lots of love to you all, everybody. See you next Friday. Ciao.